Good afternoon, everyone. Being 2 o'clock, I'm going to call the meeting to order. Today we have both Councillor Zepp and Councillor Brodnick on Teams meetings. So we'll be a little slower when it comes to voting, but hopefully we can move along. And I'll get them to signal me when they want to talk, and I'll put them on the list because I have the queue list here, and I'll put them on. With that, I'd like to remind everyone that we're on Treaty 6 land, the home of the Métis. And I'd ask everyone to rise and the city clerk to say the prayer.
O God, let us each in our own way ask your wisdom and guidance in our deliberations. Help us to incorporate into all our decisions those values which will enable us to fulfill our mission, to act as responsible stewards, and to respect and value the cultural and spiritual traditions of all citizens of the city of Prince Albert. For this we pray. Amen.
Thank you. Number 3, approval of the agenda. Is there any changes, Madam Clerk? No changes. So if I could get a motion then, please, to approve the agenda. Go ahead, Councillor Head.
I'll move that the agenda for this meeting be approved as presented and that the presentations, delegations, and speakers listed on the agenda be heard when called for by the mayor.
Thank you. That was me, I hit the wrong button. But you spoke up loud enough, it picked it up. Thank you for that. Councillor Gilmer.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll second that.
Any other questions? Hearing none, I'll prompt the vote. Okay, the vote is open. Councillor Zepp?
Yes.
Councillor Brodnick?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Carried. I'd like to remind everyone, declaration of conflict of interest. If you have any, you have to declare it. Number 5, adoptions of the minutes of July 12th, 21. Councillor Miller.
Thank you, Mayor Dion. That the minutes of the council meeting held on July 12th, 2021 be taken, read, and adopted.
Thank you. Seconder.
Do this.
Councillor Edwards.
I'll second that, Your Worship.
Thank you. Okay, I'll prompt the vote. The vote is now open. Councillor Zepp?
Yes.
Councillor Brodnick?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, motion carries. Number 6, notice of proclamations. I had none this period. Number 7, presentations. We had none. Number 8, public hearings. We have none. Number 9, delegations. We have none. Number 10, communications. We have none. Number 11, reports, administrations of the committee. 11.1, development permit application, shelter at 950B Exhibition Drive. Oh, Councillor Head.
Point of order, yes, or point of privilege. Thank you, Your Worship. I noticed we breezed by a couple of these delegations, and I know we have a couple visitors here today from Dr. Java. I don't know if they had put in a submission to speak or if they're willing to, but I thought we'd.
No, they're not on the agenda. They'll come, and they can't come up.
I thought I'd make a motion because I know they're here today to express some concern that we had discussed and or what happened over this last week. So.
Yeah, sorry.
I'll bring it up later on.
Yep, thank you.
Chair Lennox up here.
Yes.
Just a question for Mr. Chair. At the end of each city council meeting, public forum, I believe, is the last item. And it's my understanding from the procedure bylaw is that members of the public can attend for public forum, which is the last item, and that they could speak at that time without being previously approved. I don't know if there's anyone there who wishes that, but that was just a question.
Stand by. Yes, they can, but it's the last item on the agenda after everything else has been dealt with. So thank you for bringing that point forward. So if they'd like to speak after we've dealt with everything, I'll more than welcome them.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, back to 11.1, Development Permit Application Shelter, 950B Exhibition Drive. Councillor Gilmer.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'd like to move that the development permit application for a shelter to be located at 950B Exhibition Drive be approved until October 31st, 2021.
Thank you. Seconder, Councillor Miller.
Yes, I'll second, Mayor Dion.
Thank you. Discussion? Councillor Head.
Thank you, Your Worship. You know, I definitely, there's a lot of conversations when I did a lot of door knocking in my time and about this shelter when it came into place, and now having it over the winter months is definitely needed in our city. We can tell that looking around, and I get regularly communicated from residents saying that we need to do more, we need to do something, so this is at least partly of that. But I know, Your Worship, you had mentioned that there was possibly, you know, a summit that we're going to hold, and if that's something that we're going to see as well, and a date provided. But also on the heels of Councillor Edwards' motion saying that we should get together in a larger group to talk about some of this. So I would hope that we're going to see this happen in the next couple of weeks or very soon, because the residents in Prince Albert want us to do more about this. So,
Thank you. Any other comments about the shelter? Councillor Zierakowski.
Thank you, Worship. Question to administration. What's the hours of operation for this? When will it be open? What hours of the day?
Stand by. I hit that. No? Oh, shift. You're alive.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you,
Director
Councillor
Planning.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Zierakowski, for the question. My understanding is the hours will continue as is. There's a short break during the day, I believe from about noon till 6 p.m. When it reconvenes, and then obviously throughout the evening and into the overnight hours.
Okay. So it's not just an overnight. It's more than overnight. It's partly into the day. It's open into noon, closes for a bit, and then opens around the evening supper time hours. That's what I've heard?
That's correct.
Okay. So I'm in favor of this recommendation, but I would like to say in the strongest terms possible, and again, similar to what my colleagues are saying, that this is a facility that needs to be open 24 hours a day. And if they hear that from this body, my hope is they can go back to their funding agencies and say, that's the wish of this community, that's what they've asked for. We require additional dollars to have this facility open 24 hours a day. So I stopped short of saying we should mandate it. I don't think we're in a position to do that. I'm stopping short of that, but I'm saying there is a need there, and until we can get all of the agencies, all of the provincial bodies, all those interested people together and say, where's the duplication, where's the need, where are the dollars flowing, this facility needs to be open 24 hours a day. And we need to say that strongly and support them in their ask towards the funding agency.
And I do know they're on the funding agency, and it is just the federal government. I do know they are working on it. They did get funding to open it now. It wasn't supposed to open again till October. So I do know it, and they do know personally well that we wish to open it 24 hours a day. They'd like to remind us that they can do that, but they can't mandate that the people go there 24 hours a day. So they're working on it still. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Mayor Dion. I agree with my colleague to my left here about the 24 hours. These people have nowhere to go. And unfortunately, they end up roaming the city and down in the store areas and knocking on windows looking for money because they need to eat. And that's unfortunate. And if they were 24 hours and they were able to have that food that they need, then they wouldn't have to do that. And it's important that the governments recognize this issue. I know there were some concerns with that area, especially with the hockey arena. I hope that security is spruced up a little bit as well. I think they plan on it, and that's important. I do know also, though, that the funding to the homeless shelter in La Ronge was just canceled. And that's a concern to Prince Albert. And the funding agency, I'm not positive who it was, but I believe it was the provincial government, has pulled their funding. So where are those people going to end up? And it's going to be the next largest city to the south, which is Prince Albert. So we, as a provincial or as a municipal body, need to strongly encourage our provincial and federal leaders to fund that homeless shelter as well, because we're going to be the city that is impacted. And that's simply not something that Prince Albert needs right now. A lot of those people need the shelters and they want to remain in their home, but if they can't remain in their home in La Ronge, they're going to find some shelter elsewhere, and that'll be Prince Albert for sure. So I hope that we reach out to these bodies and say, what the heck are you doing? What are you thinking, leaving these people stranded on the streets? It's ridiculous. These senior bodies of government are failing mental health right now and homelessness, and it's terrible. So I do support certainly the 24 hours. I think it's important that these agencies get funded enough to operate 24 hours, because these people certainly need a place to be all day long. Thank you.
Now, just so you know, I did meet with a representative of the Grand Council, and they're back to the meal program at Access Place, and they're actually serving breakfast, dinner, and supper. So the food is certainly available to them, and they're going to keep it in that one location. So it's better managed than when they were moving it around. So it is a work in progress, and it's going to continue, because I actually thought we'd get more funding from the federal government, especially with the call that happened on Sunday. You know, usually that's when you can get your funding, but I don't know now with the election on if that's going to delay us a month or whatever. But we'll continue to work on it and report back to council. So without no one else on the
Mayor
Mm-hmm.
queue?
Dion,
Yes,
Mayor Dion, I'd like to speak if I can.
Go ahead.
Councilor Godin.
go ahead.
Thank you. What I heard everybody's comments, and what I find most frustrating is that we have so many different groups and agencies that are dealing with homelessness, but what we need is somebody to coordinate. So sooner we can get this meeting of all the interested parties and stakeholders and people that are willing to work on this together, the better it'll be. Because as you said, like Access Place has just expanded their lunch, breakfast, and supper programs. But there are other groups that have programs as well, where they offer sandwiches and food, etc. And that's what we need to do in this community is we have a homelessness problem. We have a whole bunch of different groups that are wanting and are already doing things to help the homeless and the most vulnerable people in our society. And we need somebody to coordinate all of these groups so that we don't overlap. So that, you know, on let's say, like when I was involved with PA Community Meals, we used to have Tuesday sandwiches at lunchtime. So instead of overlapping and having a lunch at Access, and let's say there was a lunch somewhere else and then handing out sandwiches, if we would all take turns and the homeless and the most vulnerable would know where they could access these resources, that would be a great thing for our community. And so I encourage you, Mr. Mayor, to get that group together, and let's get dealing with this. But in the meantime, this is a great program at the Exhibition Center, and I 100% support that. So thank you for letting me speak.
You're welcome. Now, to talk about the other groups, we did talk about them with the Grand Council. We are trying to get them together, but it's going to be hard to coordinate them, because sometimes it's done by churches in the basement of their family, and sometimes it's done by organizations. But one thing is clear: they can be fed by the Grand Council, breakfast, dinner, and supper at Access Place. So they're being fed. So I think that's the key, that they're being fed. What we need to do is get them so they'll move to the shelter. And that's going to be the challenge. And that's the question that we're all struggling with, is because we cannot force them. They have committed no criminal offense, and they live in a free society. So that's one of the challenges we have. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, Your Worship. Very quickly, couple of statements made throughout this conversation was the planned meeting, and I would just like to know about that motion of who's coordinating it? Who in our department is attempting to gather the groups? Is it the planning department or where are?
No, I've asked, who's the expert on this is Dr. Chad Nelson. He's meeting with me, and we're setting the summit up, and we're getting all these organizations together. And unfortunately, during the summer, you can't get them together. Everyone's trying to get their last holidays and everything in. So that's why we did pick September 22nd and 23rd, 2 days, and we're working hard to hit those dates.
Thank you.
Okay, anyone else? Question is open. Councillor Zapp?
Yes.
Councillor Brodnick?
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, carried. Thank you. So I'll close, accept. 11.2, development permit application renewal residential care facility, 1601B, First Street East. Councillor Cody.
Yes, I move that,
No. No, you're live.
you betcha. I move that the discretionary use development permit application for a residential care facility for up to 26 residents to be located at 1601B, First Street East be reviewed, or, renewed until August 31st, 2022.
Thank you. Councillor Ziarkowski?
I'll second that motion.
Thank you. Discussion, if any? Do you have some discussion, Councillor Ziarkowski? Nope, sorry. All right, seeing none in the queue. I will prompt the question. Okay, the question's now open. Councillor Zapp?
Yes.
Councillor Brodnick?
Yes.
Thank you, carried. Accept, move on. 11.3, Regional Air Transportation Incentive Funding Agreement. Councillor Edwards.
Thanks, Your Worship. Also move that the Regional Air Transportation Initiative funding agreement between the city and Her Majesty the Queen in right of Canada for the funding of airport equipment and renovations in the amount of $300,000 be approved. And two, that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute the agreement and any other applicable documents on behalf of the city once prepared.
Thank you. Councillor Head.
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? Seeing none, I'll prompt the question. Councillor Zapp?
Yes.
Councillor Brodnick?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion's carried. 11.4, Little Red River Pedestrian Bridge Replacement Program.
Tara Lennox up here.
Yes.
I would move that administration be directed to proceed with the construction of the 3 replacement bridge options, including replacement of the Sliding Hill, Lions Gate, and Sports Council bridges. Sorry, I just lost the screen. I can find the motion in my material here. Oh, there we go. That on the basis of the chosen project scope,
Where's Terry?
PCL Construction Management, Inc. be awarded the Little Red River Park pedestrian bridge replacement tender for the Sliding Hill, Lionsgate, and Sports Council bridges on the terms of its bid in the amount of $1,576,285, including PST. That the additional costs of $205,772 above the approved capital budget for the replacement of the Sliding Hill, Lionsgate, and Sports Council bridges be funded from the future infrastructure reserve, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute the agreement and any other necessary documents as recommended by the city solicitor, are necessary to implement these resolutions on behalf of the city, and that expenditures of potential project overages be authorized and managed by the city manager.
Seconder. Councillor Kilmer.
I'll second that, and I have a question.
Okay, go ahead.
For the director, in the funding reserve, in my understanding of looking at the funding reserve, I'm wondering, am I correct in my math that that will leave just over $1 million left in that budget? Or reserve?
Thank you
Go
very
ahead,
much
Director.
for that question, and you are correct. It'll be just over $1.1 million left in the reserve if this is approved.
I'll shut your mic off. Thank you. Councillor Head.
Thank you, Your Worship. Just looking at the report, for the public, wanting to highlight that, you know, we were going to replace the one bridge because of the investment of the playground structure there, but also looking at the report, it makes sense to do all three. So I'm glad to see that the motion was to capture all three bridges. If we wait on the third one, it looks like the cost would be a lot more than what is being presented here. So happy to support this motion. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Councillor Edwards.
Thanks, Your Worship. Couple of things, I guess. There was some consultation that occurred with a company after we sent this back to figure out if there was other alternatives and whether we can save some money somewhere. And I think that one of the companies that we consulted were involved in the tender portion, but I'm not sure. I know though it was more to do with some of the drainage ditches and those prices. I'm just wondering if that was taken into consideration, or if we paid that company to consult at the time, or if it was considered in this tender.
You're live.
Thank you. I believe you're referring to Walker Projects from Regina. Last tender 2 years ago, when the price was considered too high by council, they gave direction for the city manager's office to hire a third-party independent engineering company to review the design and to see if there was any way to save money or change the design to make it more economical. That company was Walker Projects from Regina, and they did review our design, and they did review the tender, and they compared it to other bridges, pedestrian bridges that they have, not they, but other companies have been building in Regina. Over the last decade, Regina built about 20 of these across their golf courses, Wascana Creek, through their parks. And their findings were that we did have a good design. There weren't any areas that they could find to save money on the Little Red River bridges, because it is a river. And also that our prices were reasonable compared to the ones from Regina. So they thought that we had done a good job on that design with ISL Engineering. And from that point, it had come back to council again for budget. And at that point, you folks as a council gave us direction to go for the 3 bridges.
Okay. I'm good with that. Another thing is on the topic of bridges, are we going to be seeing the drainage ditch report coming out soon, prior to this budget coming up?
Go ahead, Director.
Thank you for the question. So that was the long-term process. The Little Red River bridges were supposed to be done first because they're the highest priority, obviously. Once these get constructed or get passed, then the engineers will be working on the design as asked by this council to look at alternatives, including culverts versus pedestrian bridges, and that's what they will be working on. Of course, that'll have to come before the next budget because presently we don't have any budget for any of those bridges, but that is coming, yes.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Zierakowski.
Thank you. So I'd just like to confirm, my colleague asked about a reserve. The future infrastructure reserve, that's noted in this report, where money is going to come out of, has a balance of just over $1 million. That's the reserve that was referenced earlier, correct? Okay, thank you. This project has had a few pauses along the way, and rightly so, and I think that's okay. I think when you follow the dollars and ask the questions, sometimes that comes with pauses. Not necessarily surprises, but pauses. So when we come to number 5, the most recommendation number 5, that's a new one for me. You don't usually see number 5 up on the board. That expenditures of potential project overages be
Thank you.
authorized and managed by the city manager. From time to time, we've asked the city manager to do that, specifically when we dealt with the water crisis, oil in the water a few years. That was important. Bills had to be paid and decisions had to be made. Why is number 5 up there now?
Go ahead, Director, you're still alive.
Thank you for the question. So I'll try to cover this as best I can, but later on in your agenda today, there is a report coming from finance related to project contingencies and pooling them. So if that passes, then this becomes the mandate that the city manager has to approve every contingency, every change order request on every project within the city of Prince Albert. It is rather monumental. It will consume more time of the city manager and directors, but that later today could be the way that we're going forward. If that's not the case, then number 5 may not be necessary, and change orders could be awarded or approved according to the approval level of each person, whether it's the manager, city manager, or the director, or the project manager based on their approval level. I hope that answers the question for you.
It does. It provides some context for sure. So what we're saying is how the city has done business in the past up until the item that you referenced has been that the manager or the director has had the authority to authorize overages.
Change orders up to his signing authority.
Up to the signing authority. And what we're saying is to put another pair of eyes on it. The report later on in the agenda says the onus now will be on the city manager to have another set of eyes on those proposed possible overages that may occur.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, I want to shut their lights off. Yes, your light, thank you. And thank you for bringing that up, Councillor Zierakowski, because that's one thing I've targeted too. And I still struggle with change orders and overages, because we pay millions of dollars for detailed plans. So I just don't understand overages and change orders. Sorry, I don't. It'd be different if we didn't have a plan and we were just building it and we ran into something. But when we spend all this kind of money on a detailed plan, to me, if there's a change order, that should be applied to the architects against their errors and omission insurance. Why should we have to pay because something was missed? And that's why I struggle with this. So I am glad that the city manager will be an extra set of eyes, and it's probably going to take longer. But if you're going to spend city taxpayers' money, you're going to have to justify it. And I tell people that we hire these guys, we get a detailed plan. Just so you know, if I had my way, I wouldn't vote for it. I would just say that every contract we get, you get $3 million to build the bridges, and that's it. That's what you quoted. If you miss something, that's not my problem. You know, the problem is you. We gave you a detailed plan, bid it. We gave you the bid. We're sorry if you missed something. But I have a question, because this is probably going to be an extra expense. The bridge, I don't know what it's called, the one further in the bush. No, the one that we're replacing. Sports Council Bridge. And I probably know it's going to be an extra because it probably wasn't in the tender. Are we going to remove the old bridge that's laying in the creek and also remove the existing bridge that's there? I'm just amazed that other bridge is still laying in the creek. I'm amazed Fisheries allowed that. But is it in our plan when we go in and put the new bridge in that we're going to remove both the one that's in the water and the one that's existing? Oh, sorry. You're alive.
Thank you. So my understanding is that the one existing, which includes the present abutments that are falling down and burnt, and the existing bridge will all be removed. But under our agreement or our permit with Oceans and Fisheries and Environment Canada, we're not to touch the water. So we weren't going to go into the river itself, but right up to the shore. We'll remove everything that's up to the shore, but not in the water itself. That would require a separate approval from them.
Okay,
it's
they
been
don't,
there-
they don't have an issue with it sitting in the water?
It's been there for decades, like literally decades, 40 some years probably.
Okay, as long as we're not gonna get an order from them. Okay, any other discussion? Kill your mic. I'll prompt the question. Counselor Zepp,
Yes.
Counselor Brodnick,
Yes.
thank you, motion carries. Accepted and move to the next level. 11.5, National Historic Person, James Isbister plaque. Counselor Miller.
Thank you, Mayor Dion. That the Parks Canada be authorized to install a commemorative plaque recognizing James Isbister as a National Historic Person along the Rotary Trail riverbank near 19th Avenue and 20th Avenue West. That the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute the installation and maintenance agreement with Parks Canada on behalf of the city once prepared.
Thank you. Counselor Brodnick, did you say something?
Yeah, I'd like to second that motion, please.
Okay,
And
thank
then I'd
you.
like to speak as well, please.
Okay, you're up. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is an important motion, I think, and an important acknowledgement that Prince Albert, traditionally we always recognized Reverend Nisbet as being one of the founders. However, when you look at the research from the Historical Society and various members, Mr. Isbister was also considered one of the founders and was one of the first people here on one of the old traditional Métis river lots. Prince Albert is a series of Métis river lots. If you remember your grade 12 history, you'll know what I'm talking about. And he was on one of those lots and had lived here. And I think this is an important motion, and I'm sure it will receive unanimous approval by council. But I'm very happy to see Parks Canada acknowledge that we do have two people that has played a part in the founding of our great city. So I support this motion 100%.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing no one in the queue, I'm going to prompt the question. Pretty good. Counselor Zepp,
Yes.
Counselor Brodnick,
Yes.
thank you. The motion did carry unanimously.
Just 1 point. Again, Mayor.
Okay, on this subject or?
Yeah, just before we move on too far, I just want to make a quick comment on it. Happy to pass.
Okay, hang on. Let me cue you back in. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. I won't take much time. I just wanted to say, I noticed in this report, and happy to see it, there's one line in here that, means a lot to me, and I think moving forward and tonight's vote, it is supported by the Truth and Reconciliation Commission called action number 79, and it's the first time I've seen that in any of our reports, so happy to see that. Thank you.
Yeah, that's a good thing about the reconciliation. That's why they could put it on it, because some's federal, some provincial, some municipal. All 173 are not ours. So thank you for that acknowledgement. Okay, we're going to move on to 11.6, ATM Supply and Service Agreement. Councillor Edwards.
Also move that the ATM supply and service agreements be awarded to 101-185-387, if my eyes saw that right, Saskatchewan Limited, Next Cash ATM Solutions for the ATM services at city facilities for a 2-year term from September 1st, 2021 to August 31st, 2023. 2, that the automated teller machine supplier pay to the city $1.75 per ATM transaction for the term of the agreement. And 3, that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute the agreement on behalf of the city once prepared.
Thank you. Councillor Kilmer?
I'll second that.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, I'll cue the question. Councillor Zepp?
No.
Councillor Brodnick?
Yes.
Thank you. Motion carries. 11.7, bulk vending supply and service agreement. Councillor Kilmer?
Thank you, Your Worship. I move that the bulk vending supply and service agreement between the city and GLH Vending for bulk vending services at city facilities for a 2-year term from August 24th, 2021 to August 23rd, 2023 be approved. That the vendor pay the city 37% of the net sales from all machines at all locations plus GST with a minimum annual guarantee of $12,000 plus GST in each year for the term of the agreement, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute the agreement on behalf of the city once prepared.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards?
I'll second that, Your Worship, and I have a comment as well.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Yeah, I support this. It's revenue for the city, much as the last one was significant revenue for the city. So we have to support that. The residents want revenue from different sources
Absolutely.
for the city, so we need to support these.
Thank you. Any other comments? Hearing none, I'm going to prompt the question.
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, Tara Lennox up here. Can I make a comment?
Go ahead.
Just that certainly this is revenue, and I really had to think about this item. You know, perhaps there are ways that we could look into in the future of us as a city providing more of the sales instead of the bulk sales where we receive a portion, the 37%. And we do have city facilities where we provide sales of these items. Perhaps we could consider and look into that aspect. Thank you.
Okay, these are bulk items, like those are the bubble gum machines and those kinds of machines. We don't operate those in any of our facilities. Okay.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you. I'll prompt the question. Councillor Zepp?
No.
Councillor Miller? Oh, sorry. I'm looking at Councillor Rodnick's seat, sorry.
Councillor Grodnick is a yes.
Okay, I'm looking over.
Councillor Miller, but Councillor Grodnick's a yes.
I'm looking over there, there was somebody there, okay. Sorry. Okay. Motion carries. Okay. I'm moving now to 11.8, supply and service agreement, city concessions. Councillor Kilmer, this is an expense, so look out.
Thank you. Thank you, Your Worship. I move that the supply and services agreement between the city and Van Hoot Coffee Services Incorporated for the supply and service of hot beverage product and equipment at city concessions for a 2-year term from September 1st, 2021 to August 31st, 2023 be approved, and that the supply and service agreement between the city and Premier Brands Operating GP Incorporated for the supply and service of frozen beverage product and equipment at the city concessions for a 2-year term from September 1st, 2021 to August 31st, 2023 be approved, that the supply and service agreement between the city and Premium Brands Operating GP Incorporated for the supply and services of nachos and popcorn product and equipment at city concessions for a 2-year term from September 1st, 2021 to August 31st, 2023 be approved, and that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute the agreements on behalf of the city once prepared. And Councillor Zerkowski is appreciative of the nachos.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards,
I'll second that, your worship, and I have a comment.
go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Dion. So I do support the motion. I'm also going to mention that I'm thankful to the Community Services Director and Department that we saw some combos that are offered in the food booths. What I would like to see, hopefully we can see a little bit simpler of combos, maybe a popcorn and a pop combinations, not just at the Art Hauser, maybe throughout the arenas, and that's what I would like to see. I think that the people, the residents that are in these arenas are looking for something like that, and combinations work. They sell. They're lost leaders. They believe that they're saving a buck when, you know, they may not get a popcorn and a pop, but if it's a deal, they'll get a popcorn and a pop instead of just the pop or the popcorn. So I'm a believer in it. I think it's important that we bring that in. I think it's important that we can save some families a few dollars, but I also believe that we're going to make some more revenue by doing it. Thank you.
And I agree with that. In every restaurant you go, fast food, all have combos. Upsize it, they call it. Okay, I'll prompt the question. Councillor Zepp,
Yes.
Councillor Brodnick,
Yes.
thank you. Motion carries. Okay, 11.9, Grand Slam Ballpark rebuilt. Councillor Edwards.
Thank you, your worship. Also move that the agreement between the city and the Prince Albert Minor Baseball Association to fund the improvements to Crescent Acres Ball Diamonds be approved. 2, that the sponsorship agreement template be approved to be utilized by the Prince Albert Minor Baseball Association for sponsorships, commitments in support of the improvements to Crescent Acres Ball Diamonds. 3, that the letter of understanding between the city and the Saskatchewan Rivers Public School Divisions be approved. And 4, that the mayor and city clerk be authorized to execute the agreement and the letter of understanding on behalf of the city once prepared.
Thank you. Seconder? Councillor Miller?
Yes, I'll second it, Mayor Dion.
Thank you. Any discussion?
Tara Lennox up here.
Go ahead.
Thank you. Just a question for administration. Does this agreement involve funding from the city?
No. Director.
Thank you, Mayor Dion. To Councillor Lennox Zepp's inquiry. At this point, there were some minor repairs, I would say, and minor upgrades that we had to complete this year. When we speak to some of the long-term ones that this plan speaks to, that would be a separate application process should they choose to request funding from the city. So at this point, they are establishing the sponsorship package, as you see. They'll take that to market. We think they'll be very successful in that. However, if they do require any funding from the city, that would be separate from today.
Did that answer your question?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, it did. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor Edwards?
Thank you, your worship. So I am supporting the motion. I think it's going to be wonderful to have an elite baseball diamonds and grounds in Prince Albert. We have that for softball already, and it's well utilized, and it's respected across Canada, really, by the Art Hauser there, the grounds there. I'm a little concerned. I'm hopeful that we're going to see a budget request coming up for some money coming towards this project. Will we see that request coming up in the upcoming budget?
Go ahead, Director.
Thank you, Mayor Dion. To Councillor Edwards' inquiry. So after today, upon approval of the package, and even as early as this afternoon, there's another meeting with the Minor Baseball Association. So should this be approved, our next steps would then turn to achieving the funding side of it. Should the Minor Baseball Association submit a request, we would have to review what the best forum would be, whether that would be through the annual budget process, or previously you referenced Project Triple Play, which drove the fundraising up at the Prime Minister's Park for those ball diamonds. That application did come through the Destination Marketing Fund, through the capital enhancement section of that program. I'm not sure where they may choose to apply. However, if it does have budget implications, we'll make sure it's submitted at that time.
Okay, thank you. That's good to hear. And as far as the sponsorship template, I was looking at that. I'm not sure where the 3-year term come from. I'm hopeful that that can be adjusted as necessary. I'm assuming that's not set in stone.
To Councillor Edwards' inquiry, so no, it's not. What this sets is some parameters for us to go out to market for the sponsorship piece. What we found previously when we didn't have this type of approach for different sponsorship campaigns, there wasn't that transparent communication with council or the public on exactly what the appropriate parameters should be and what we should be focusing on achieving. So this does set some of those parameters. However, if we have a business or an organization or a corporation come forward and say, look, we're very excited about this project. We'd like to see, significant investment from our end to the city and to minor baseball to achieve this. However, in order to do so, we would like to see, for example, an extended time frame for naming rights, for example, at a ball diamond, a term like that. We certainly would be open to that. This only establishes the agreement with minor baseball. So each of those naming rights agreements, as we establish them, they also come back to council for approval. So council would see those, and if it's more than a 3-year term, we'll identify it in the report at that time.
Okay, thank you. That's good news.